Hello, pretty caterpillars, and today we're doing booked club number 11. So like I said, most of these ones I don't actually have the physical books to show you because a lot of them I read audiobooks or I just read in my Kobo, so I don't have the physical books for most of these to actually show you. I do have one, but the rest of them I don't have, so I usually just put up a picture of the book along with the author. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So the first book we're going to be talking about is a 3-book series, and they're called the Dreamland Billionaire series. The first book is The Fine Print. I think it's by Lauren Asher. I could be saying her name wrong. But the first book is called The Fine Print, and it is about the one, I think he is the middle child of, because there's 3 boys. There is it's Deacon, Rowan, and Callahan. So the first one is about Rowan, and their grandfather has just died. He is the person that started Dreamland, and Dreamland is basically Disneyland. Like it is like this book's version of Disneyland. So their grandpa Brady Kane started Dreamland, and it's this amusement park land, and they also did a whole bunch of movies, franchising, and have all these characters and the princesses. So it's basically it's Disneyland. So it's Disney. It is 100% like this novel's version of Disney. So anyways, Brady Kane started this this company years ago, and he's recently passed. And he's each left in the will a task for his 3 grandsons plus his own son, and they have 2 years to complete it, or they don't get their shares of the company. So Rowan's task, I think he's supposed to run Dreamland for 6 months, and then he is supposed to then move to California. He was in New York or something. He's at wherever Dreamland is, and then he's supposed to move back to be with his brother to help Declan run the company. And so, because I think Rowan is like some sort of designer, or I don't know, I forget what Rowan's title is. But anyways, he meets this girl named Zara. They end up crossing paths at like one of her presentations that he like goes to, because they're like trying to design a new ride for the company, and it's like every year they have this contest that they're allowed to like put in for their like ideas for a ride and stuff like that, and if they get chosen they get like this big thing. And so like Zara had this really cool idea, and her ex-boyfriend basically stole it and used the idea and like submitted it to the company on her. And so Zara is like all upset about it because she, like they want to then go, and then also too her idea gets picked too, which is really terrible for her, because then she has to then she gets chosen to be one of the people that design, like help build this idea and like make it come to life. And so she ends up like getting thrown in Rowan's path, because Rowan has to then work on this design with Zara. And then, Rowan is like this very closed off, very like grumpy person, like, doesn't smile. And Zara is this like bubbly, wonderful, like, a people pleaser person. And then Rowan and Zara like obviously butt heads, but Rowan actually kind of like likes Zara. So he ends up telling her like, oh, if you ever need an idea or having trouble like roadblocking, or ever want someone to talk to about your project you're working on, there's this guy I know in a different department that you've never met, because a lot of them don't kind of cross paths and stuff, but he's in like, I forget what part of the company, design maybe, I don't know, he's in some sort of the company, and because she can't draw very well. And so he's like, if you ever need someone to draw for you, like these ideas and stuff, like, let me know, I'll give you my buddy's number. And she's like, okay. And then she like asks for the guy's number, like Rowan gives her the number. But meanwhile, Rowan gives her like this, he ends up getting like a fake number somehow. And so he gives it to Zara to text him. And so she thinks she's texting with this other guy, and it actually ends up being Rowan. And then she ends up getting Rowan's number somehow too, and like kind of talks to Rowan a little bit because he has to like communicate with her through the company whatever email. I think through the company email stuff back and forth. But anyways, he still ends up giving Zara a fake number somehow, like, but he has access to this fake number, like texts and stuff like that. So she's texting this guy she thinks she's talking to, and then she ends up really like liking this other guy, but in hindsight it's actually Rowan, kind of like helping her out with all this stuff. And she ends up having this, like, I think her sister has special needs, and she wants to like start this program to kind of like help special needs people be introduced with like a buddy system kind of thing, and like kind of get them to like kind of hang out with somebody that's not also special needs, but like can help, you know, to kind of just be a friend to them as well. I don't really know what I'm saying. I forget what the program is. It's kind of like the Big Brother system, but a little bit different. And so Rowan offers to help out with this and kind of be a buddy for somebody, because someone doesn't end up having a buddy to hang out with. And I think it's like the sister's boyfriend or something like that. So Rowan agrees to do that because he wants to spend more time with Zara. But Zara kind of hates Rowan because she thinks he's a snobby person, because she doesn't know that who she's actually been talking to for all these months is also actually Rowan. She only ever sees, like, in person, Rowan's, like, really hard and, like, crusty self. And as this other guy, he kind of gets to open up more so and kind of be himself more so, and kind of gets to know Zara more. And then eventually Zara finds out that he's been lying this entire time, and she's really been talking to Rowan, and though she's really mad at him, and, you know, so then Rowan has to kind of win her over. And the sad thing too about the book as well is their mother has died when they were at a really young age. And so their dad, then being the one that's supposed to take care of them, he ends up turning into an alcoholic after he loses his wife. And I think his mom got really sick and had, I don't know what she had. They didn't really say, I don't think, what their mother died of. It was just kind of before she got sick, before her illness, and then after her illness, they kind of like refer to those different parts of their lives. I think one of them was 10 when the mom died. Like, they were very young when they lost their mom. And you kind of see Rowan and Zara's love life kind of, their relationship kind of flourish and change, and, you know, how that whole dynamic comes along. And then in the second book, Terms and Conditions, is all about Duncan. You do still get to see the rest of the characters. They kind of all intermingle, but you don't get introduced to... In the first book, you get introduced to Declan and Callahan a little bit, but not... Declan a little bit with Rowan, not really so much Cal. Cal's definitely more in the second book than he is in the first book, for sure. But the three of them, like, you know, it's all, like, they kind of are all intermingled and stuff like that, which is kind of fun. So in the second book, it is all about Declan and Iris. And Declan has, again, his thing from his grandfather was he needs to get married and have a child before he can have access to his job as CEO and his shares of the company. Well, I think it's more so he has to get married. He does have to have a kid with, I think, in 5 years of all this going down or something, for him to get his legacy to move on. And so Declan can't find a girlfriend. He's been trying for the past 2 years. And so him and Iris deployed a plan. Iris is his assistant. She's been his assistant for a couple of years now. I don't remember how many years, not a couple of years, like 5 or 6 years or something like that. She's been with him for a long time. Maybe 3 or 4 years, actually not 5 or 6, I think 3 or 4 years. And so Iris is like the best assistant to him. And they had devised a plan that they were going to find, like, she had to help him pick a wife, basically. And they were about to go to this engagement party, and, like, the girl, like, calls the deal off and is like, nope, I'm not doing it. So Iris, in a panic, decides that she is then going to take up his his wife. She's gonna do it for him, and like doesn't actually end up telling him because he like Declan gets mad at her and is like, what am I supposed to do now? Our engagement party's like in 3 hours and like, or an hour, and everyone's already here and we're supposed to go out and announce it. And she's like, don't worry, I've got it covered. I'll be your wife. And he's like, what? No, you won't. And she's like, yeah, I'll do it. Don't worry about it. Like, I'll help you out because I know that you're going to benefit from this. We'll hash out the details later. But so Iris ends up posing as Declan's wife, and they kind of get to play it off because, oh, you know, I was his secretary. I was his, you know, his secretary, his assistant for, you know, how many ever years, and we kind of just eventually fell in love, but we kept it really quiet because we didn't want anyone else to know, and now we're getting married in a month. And Iris was like, this was the whole reason we didn't like tell anyone who Declan was dating, because we weren't sure who actually was going to be the one at the end in case something happened, in case this girl Bethany decided to back out, because there was a couple girls that had agreed to do it and then eventually did not want to do it. And so they devised this whole, like, she has this whole big contract she has to sign with Declan about how they're going to have kids, how they're going to have IVF baby, and they'll be together for, you know, a couple of years. Wait till after she has the child, then they'll break up, and she'll get this giant amount of money, and, like, the child will be definitely, like, taken care of. Like, she doesn't have to worry about anything like that. Like, he will provide for the child. For the child that they have together through this whole arranged marriage and stuff like that. So she agrees to, I think Iris is like 22, I can't remember how Declan is, but in the process of them becoming engaged, they end up actually falling in love because they have to kind of prove to the world that they are actually married. So they end up like going on these dates together and stuff like that. She like plans all these little like dates and things for them to try to get like photographed for, because again, these people are really like high tech news, and everyone's like, some people are suspicious that like she's only after him for his money, you know, she doesn't actually love him. And they kind of have to prove to Brady Kane's lawyer that this marriage is actually not just a scam and not just to get his inheritance, that they actually do care about each other. So in the process of doing that, they both kind of end up falling in love with each other. Surprise, surprise. And then they, you know, so... And the funny thing too is that Iris's best friend is Callahan, who is Declan's brother. And like the brother and everyone know that like their relationship is not real, that it's fake. But Deacon, I always keep calling him Deacon. Declan is also like super suspicious that like Iris is in love with Cal. Even though like Cal and her kissed once and like they were like, nope, this is not, like a couple of years ago, they were like, nope, this is definitely not for us. They got drunk and they made out they kissed each other one night and they're like, nope, we're not. There was no sparks, there's no feelings towards each other, we're just strictly friends. And so like Iris is really kind of leaning on Cal to help her through all of this, to try to help deal with her brother, his brother, who is very like bullheaded and you know, a workaholic. And Declan actually finds out, like, he ends up falling in love with Iris, and Iris is in love with him too, but like neither of them want to admit it to each other that they are in love with each other. And at one point Iris is like, I need a dog, and so she like describes this really random, like really specific dog that she wants, and apparently she hates dogs. And so Declan one night, he goes to try to win her back, he goes and like finds this very specific dog that she wants, and like he goes through a bunch of different shelters and like no one has this dog, and then he ends up like going to the last shelter one night, and he's gonna turn around and like go somewhere else because it's almost closing time, and he like can't find this dog, and then he like finds this exact dog she's looking for with separation anxiety because she wanted a dog that'll always be next to her. And so he buys her the dog, And he buys her like this SUV for her soccer team amount of kids that she wants. And like surprises her and like confesses its love for her and everything. And then like Iris has to choose whether or not she actually wants to be with Declan for real. You know, if they kind of want to rip up the whole contract and actually be married. So yeah. And then in the third one, which is final offer, Callahan's task is he has to go and spend a summer at the old cottage summer house type thing, and his ex-girlfriend Alana lives there, and Callahan thinks that it's gonna just be, you know, always be 3 months, it'll be super easy. And then when he's like, oh, because he just thought he had to sell this, he had to live there for 3 months and then sell the house at the end, like when his 3 months of living at that house were done. And he has 2 years to do that. He had to spend like 3 months or something at the summer house. He doesn't realize that Alana still lives at this house because this is his ex-girlfriend. He hasn't talked to her in 6 years. The reason they broke up was because Callahan got injured. He used to play hockey, and then he started drinking, and they broke up because of it, because Alana's sister is an alcoholic and is a user of drugs, and she just can't be around Callahan when he is doing those things. And so Cal has struggled with his sobriety for the past 6 years, and in and out of rehab and stuff. And now Alana has her little girl Cammie with her, and he doesn't know that, like, who the father is, and Callahan's worried he's the father, and like Alana didn't tell him. And then it makes it all more complicated because now there's a child involved living with them. And so like he has to find a way to let Alana live there for 3 months, but he can't tell her why he needs to live there for 3 months. Otherwise his contract is like null and void if he tells her like he doesn't get his inheritance and stuff like that. If she finds out that that's the reason he needs to stay there. Because if she knew that was the reason, he needed to live there, she definitely would have let him live there. I'm walking by my house. Security is going off right now. Don't know if you guys can hear it. I'm sure it's probably picking it up because they are quite loud. Anyways, so yeah, if Alana finds out that that's why he needs to stay there, the contract is null and void because they can't tell anyone about the whole why they need to do this stuff and stuff like that. And like Cal still has feelings for Alana, and Alana never really got over Cal either. Like they have been in love with each other for the past like 6 years, and like Cal hasn't been with anyone really since Alana. And she doesn't know that Cal hasn't been with anyone since her, because, you know, she is the only person for Cal, and like, but because Cal is not sober, Alana doesn't want him in her life until he gets sober and stays sober, because it's just too hard now that she's got Cammie, and stuff like that. And you find out who Cammie belongs to and who Cammie's father is, kind of. So yeah, the two of them go on a journey together. They have to end up selling the house at the end too, so they end up having to like upgrade it, and kind of because it's falling apart, because Alana hasn't had the money to keep like upkeeping this giant mansion that Brady Kane originally in the deed promised her, but in his will it's changed, and now her and Callahan own the rights to the house, and both of them have to be willing to agree to sell the house, but he needs to sell the house by the end of the 2 years or he doesn't get his inheritance. So, you know, they go on a journey together, fall in love again, and, you know, kind of what all that entails. And Cal tries to get sober, and, you know, that series. I really like books too that like all the characters kind of intermingle, and you kind of like meet them all throughout the 3 books, and you kind of get to see glimpses of their lives. And it kind of really focuses on just like 2 characters in the book, but you also get to kind of see other characters and kind of how they develop, which is also like the next series that I want to talk about, which I do actually have the first book. It's The Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. And then this one is about Naomi, and she runs away from her wedding and ends up in Knockham town, because her twin sister Tina up and left her niece there, Wyatt, in Knockham. So Naomi has to go and be the loving, caring sister and like go take her daughter's, like her Tina's daughter, which they didn't even know Tina had 11-year-old daughter until her like sister showed up. I don't know if she showed up at her doorstep or like wrote her a note or something. Somehow she found out that Tina has left her with a daughter. She ends up like stealing her car, and everyone thinks that she's Tina, and Tina's like in and out with the law and had a really hard time, and like Naomi has to prove to all these town people that like I'm not Tina, even though we're identical twins and we look identical, but we're not. We're very different. Like Naomi's this sweet, loving, caring person, and Tina is kind of like this hot mess, always in and out with the law. And so Naomi moves to Knockham to help raise Tina's daughter, while Tina just like up and went MIA on her. Stole Naomi's car too while she was there, because she like had messaged her and said she wanted to like meet up for coffee because she needed money and stuff like that. And so she met up with her sister, or she's supposed to meet up with her sister, goes into this like shop, and then her sister like takes her car. And Naomi ends up being stranded in this town, and then finds out that she's left with her niece from the town members that are like, oh yeah, Tina has a daughter too, and they've been living in this hotel, and like poor Naomi has to like go and find her. And then there's the Morgan brothers, Knox and Nash, and Knox is kind of like the mayor of the town, so Knox ends up having to go like deal, because they call Knox in being like, Tina's here and she's causing a ruckus, and it's not actually Tina, it's Naomi. And so Knox kind of helps Naomi get settled in with Wyatt. He offers her a place to stay at this cottage. So Knox kind of helps Naomi get back on her feet, and the two of them, eventually fall in love. And you kind of get to watch that whole love story unfold, and kind of the drama with Tina's sister, and Naomi and Wyatt get kidnapped, and then Knox has to go and save them. Things we hide from the light. That involves Nash and Lena. And Nash gets shot, and Evangelina is one of Knox's old girlfriends that came into town to kind of like help. She's like a bounty hunter is kind of the wrong word, but she's kind of like when things get like she works for this insurance company, and when insurance companies like people make big giant claims, Lena has to go out and like get said claims back, and so she's back like hunting for this man's car that got stolen by this mob boss, Hugo. And Hugo is kind of the reason behind Nash getting shot. And so kind of watching Nash and Lena kind of deal with each other, and they also become friends with Sloane too, and then the Nash and Morgan's best friend Lucian Rollins is also like this really really hi-fi kind of guy that works with the FBI. He runs this really big intelligent company, and not intelligent company, but he I don't know how you describe what he does. He like has a lot of like politicians and stuff, and he's not a lawyer, but he like gets all this information. I don't really know what Lucian does, but anyways, he uses his company to help find out who kidnapped Naomi and Wyatt, and who shot Nash. And Sloane is a librarian at the town too, and Lynn and Naomi and Sloane are also kind of all become friends and stuff like that, because Wyatt became friends with Sloane's niece Chloe, and so the two of them hang out a lot because of that. And Naomi's new in town, and she meets the librarian, and they become friends. And then when Lynn moves in and kind of stays because her work requires her to, because this is kind of where the car was last known whereabouts and stuff like that, and so it's also involved in the car that got stolen from Lena's person. She has to go after, like, get this car back from her, some sort of like old expensive car. Ends up falling in paths with Nash, and then Lena and Nash kind of end up falling together, and you kind of get to watch their love story. Kind of, they're also enemies, they kind of hate each other, but they end up living next to each other. Knox gives Naomi a job at his bar called Honky Tonks, so Naomi works as a waitress there, because that way she can be around for Wyatt when Wyatt's in school and when Wyatt's done school, and then she can kind of like work there at night and stuff like that. And then in the third book was all about Sloane and Lucian, and kind of dealing with, these two have like this very like, we hate each other, but like, and no one knows what happened between the two of them for why they like just hate each other and like will not talk to each other and like are so rude to each other. And then Sloane's dad dies, and Lucian was super close with Sloane's parents because they grew up together. Like they grew up living in the same, like Sloane and Lucian have known each other since high school. Like all like Knox and Nash have also known Sloane too since high school. But Lucian's definitely was more closer with Sloane, because Sloane and Lucian lived right next to each other when they were growing up. And then Lucian bought his dad's house, and Sloane lives in her parents' house now, so they end up living right next to each other too in the whole story. When Lucian kind of leaves Boston and comes back to Snockham. And they still have to deal with, you know, finding out who killed Nash, who shot Nash, and now someone's threatening Sloane's life. And so then Sloane and Lucian, you can definitely tell that there's like this heated tension between the two of them. Like, will they, won't they kind of get together type of situation, because they hate each other. They're definitely enemies with each other, but they also like secretly are both in love with each other, but just like don't want to admit it to each other that they are in love with each other. So that's interesting to watching those two guys like kind of deal with that while they're also put in life-threatening situations. Like I said, the first book, Naomi and Wyatt get kidnapped. The second book, Nash gets shot. And then in the third book, I'm not really sure. I haven't fully finished it yet. I have like 100 more pages to go, so I don't really know what happens, and I don't really want to ruin the book for everyone else. But these are some of the big things that happen too in the books. Like I said, I haven't finished. I'm halfway through the third book, but it is really good, and so I just wanted to kind of talk about it, even though I haven't finished it, so I can't fully tell you what happens with Naomi and this Hugo character, and you kind of figure out, you slowly learn about what happened on that night, the two of them, like Lucian and Sloane, kind of what happened and why they hate each other now and why they won't speak to each other. After Sloane's dad dies, so Lucian comes back and moves back in the house, and he's planning on selling his parents' house, like his dad's house too, but he just can't like let go of it for some reason, and you kind of figure out why, and like what happened to Lucian's dad, and what happened with Sloane and Lucian when they were kids, and kind of what Lucian, like Sloane's parents meant to Lucian, and kind of what they did for Lucian, and why he's super close with her mom. Because Sloane does not like it that his mom and Lucian like have lunch together every week and stuff like that, or once a month they get together and stuff. The last book we want to talk about is The Worst Best Man by Lucy Score, another Lucy Score book. This one's really good. So she's known, I think, again since college. Her best friend, anyways, is getting married, and her best friend is like super rich, and she has invited her to her wedding as like her maid of honor and stuff like that. And so her fiance's best man, Francesca's best friend, that's the girl's name, Francesca, is getting married, and they're going off to like this really fancy resort, and like all expensive paid, and for this girl, because she knows she can't afford it, because her best friend's like this really rich hoity-toity girl, And she's marrying this really rich hoity-toity guy, and the best man is Aiden, and like she absolutely hates Aiden. She thinks he is this rich, spoiled, entitled guy, and the worst thing happens at the bachelorette party. The bachelorette and bachelor party were like the night before the wedding, and the groom gets kidnapped, and so her and Aiden have to work together. Aiden have to work together to figure out how to rescue the groom, because they don't want to tell her friend that the groom has gotten kidnapped, because they're in this foreign country, and like her friend would just like lose her mind, and she doesn't like want to do that. And they figure out, like, they saw him get in this van. His van pulled up while they were outside, and they were all like drunk and stuff. And Francesca's the only sober one, and so does Aiden. Or Aiden, not Aiden. Sorry, I keep calling him the wrong name. Aiden's in a movie I'm watching right now, so I got Aiden in the brain. And so, or not movie, a show I'm watching right now. And so, Aiden helps Francesca track down this person that kidnapped the groom, and they have 24 hours to find him, because the wedding's in 24 hours, and like she can't know that he's missing, and so like they're texting, and like his phone got left behind, so he's like texting her too, so that she has no idea that the groom was was kidnapped. So they end up rescuing the groom, and luckily, and they rescue him from this kidnappers, and that's a whole ordeal, and they go on a whole adventure together trying to like figure out who kidnapped him and like rescue him, and they can't call the cops because they don't want to alert anyone that this like rich guy is missing. And also they don't want the bride to find out, because if the families find out that like something went awry, they're not going to get married. Like the parents won't let them get married because they don't really agree with the guy. So there's already like turmoil with her family and his family. So like she doesn't want to like have anything go awry. Otherwise, like the dad won't let her get married to the man. And if they find out the groom's been kidnapped, then the bride's dad won't let her get married into their two big like powerhouse families. And so is Aiden as well. Aiden is also too from a very rich family. And then Francesca is like a nobody from Brooklyn, basically. And because the two of them went on this adventure together, they do end up like kind of speaking to each other afterwards, and Aiden falls in love with Francesca, and kind of their two worlds are from very different worlds. And so like she's this poor girl from Brooklyn, and he's this hoity-toity fancy rich guy, so kind of watching the enemies to lovers again kind of divulge and everything. But she hates Aiden because she thinks he's this rich hoity-toity pompous asshole, and Francesca's this smart, witty, don't take shit from no one girl from Brooklyn, and works really hard for her, and he's kind of just been handed everything on a silver platter in life. And so just kind of watching the two of them interact from two different worlds come together is very interesting. So if you guys enjoyed this book club number 11, I'll see you guys later, guys. Bye. My brain is fried.